Thanks everyone for your patience. So today's panel is going to be about decentralized governance from the context of DAOs. Thank you for a very kind introduction to DAOs, and I hear a lot of misconceptions already in the introduction to DAOs, which is an excellent launching point for this entire panel discussion. So to start off, may I get our speakers to introduce yourselves, starting from Rexy? Yeah.
All right. Good morning, guys. This is an audience. So you guys can call me Rexy. I'm from Gnosis, the overall broader Gnosis organization. I'm actually more focused on Gnosis builders. So Gnosis is pretty much run with a subset of DAOs. You know, there's a bunch of products that we've rolled out, like Gnosis Safe, CalSwap. Those different products are, operated within DAOs, including the broader Gnosis DAO. So yeah, we have a booth back there. If you guys want to chat more about us, feel free to jump in. And yeah. Thanks.
Next, Ravi.
Thanks a lot. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ravi, and I am the co-founder of Riva Metaverse. Riva Metaverse is a decentralized travel organization, and we are trying to create the travel metaverse where you will be able to book your tickets, hotels in the metaverse environment. So that you have a better immersive experience and you are able to take a better decision in terms of hotel booking or flight booking or any of the experiences that you like to have at your destination. And we have been based out of the Middle East, India, West Africa, and Europe. And this Riva Metaverse is backed by the parent company called Riva Group, which is already in the travel business for last 2 decades. So we are already a profit-making company, and we have just ventured into Metaverse 10 weeks ago. And so far, we have got very good response from the people. And we will be going live with our first phase where we'll be integrating all the airlines, hotels, experiences. That will be by middle of December. So thanks a lot, guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bree. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a Stealth project. It's a lending protocol that we are planning to launch on Polygon, a marketplace for projects to actually use future collateral to do lending for capital loans and microfinancing. So we are hoping to launch it somewhere in Q1 next year. Good to build in the bear market. So hoping to have more updates in time. So it's in stealth mode, so I can't say much about it. Sorry.
Thanks, Bree. Arun?
Hey everyone, my name is Arun. I'm lead researcher at Miranda. We work pretty closely with BitDAO, which is one of the largest DAOs in this space. It's been a kind of unique challenge. We manage about $2.6 billion in assets, and that's been increasing every month. We've got several sub-DAOs and initiatives in gaming, zero knowledge, education, and yeah, it's been quite challenging to figure out how to actually coordinate governance of all these different things and make sure that everything's very efficient and productive, and looking forward to kind of digging more into that today.
Chess.
Hello, I'm Chess, the Chess, and I'm from Quest3, and Quest3 is a marketing tools for all the Web3 projects to grow, to acquire users. So like if you are a GameFi, NFT, or DeFi or something projects, you won't have more users, you can use us, and it's totally free and permissionless and easy to use. And now we have like 30,000 daily active users per day. So yeah, we have got a lot of traffic. Yeah, thank you.
So since you have the mic, maybe we can start with you. So just very quickly, right? I think DAOs has been some of a buzzword for 2022. Since you sort of run a platform to help get users, right? May I ask, like, how have DAOs interacted with like freelancers across the space? And do you find some complexities in managing this compared to like traditional organizations?
Yeah, there are many clients. They are DAOs. They're running some NFT projects, DeFi projects as a DAO type. And but to be honest, I think now most of the DAOs are still cannot fix more complicated issues or problems. Because the whole concept of DAOs are still young, and we still need more time to build the whole DAO system to follow how to manage, how to incentive DAO members, how to many things compared to the Web2 company, the concept from company. So I think it's pretty long way to go, and I'm very like the Peter Drucker. And he's, I think, one of the modern management concept founder. And he has a book in 1914s after he researched all the Ford Motor Company and read a book that named this concept of the corporation. And I think that the Ford, the vehicle company is more like a DAO in that time. And he gave all the workers 8 hours to work and $5 per day, twice at that time out of the factory, and modern ways, and they use assembly line to manage the product efficiency. So I think it's very have a high level for the management. It seems like DAO. So I think there's many ways we can learn from the Web2 company and how to incentive the members, incentive the employees, how to manage the whole team. Like in many DAOs now, they have like at least 1,000 community members. How you get them all, they can be get fired and get incentive and join your DAO and constantly contribute to your DAOs. It's a very difficult problem. But to be honest, most of the DAO members or the founders, they don't have the experience how to manage and how to incentive so many people. So it's still a long way to go. And then I think it's efficiency is first, because if we look back to the history, all the time, the Web 1, Web 0, Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, all the concept, the basic technology shift is how is this technology or is this organization have the network effect? If it is, and it can grow rapidly, and it can be a paradigm shift. So that's the key, I think. So by now we still have a long way to go, and we need to figure out how to improve the whole process and how to make the things in the right way, and onboarding more and more people into DAOs. Yeah, because compared to the whole world population, the DAO, the Web3 is still very small concept and a small country. Yeah, if you are a small country like the Madagascar or something island, you cannot do anything. You can only do some traveling or blah something. Yeah.
Okay, so I think you touched on a
Thank you.
lot of points. Thank you for that. I'd like to jump to Arun here. I think it's a very good time to hop over into incentives, which I think Chess mentioned quite a few times. So just very quickly, right? Do you think DAOs require a token, which has been quite a common form of incentivization? And if not, maybe what are some ideas that you've come across, especially across the BitDAO ecosystem, maybe?
Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. I think in some ways the token-based governance is aligned because a person has a percentage ownership of the DAO, and that gives them access to some percentage of the upside, and therefore they get a proportional level of influence over the DAO. But the question is also, does a person owning a certain amount of, let's say, bit really entitle them to make decisions on behalf of DAO? Are they a subject matter expert? Things like that. So I think we definitely need like a more nuanced take on it. I think that these existing governance models where it's like one vote per token are fairly primitive, and we're probably going to start seeing in the future these models kind of shift towards some level of ownership and also some level of reputation within the DAO. These delegation systems are also interesting, but at the same time, they're actually quite vulnerable to civil attacks and just people being very good politicians, which is not necessarily someone who's like a good DAO, a good person to run a DAO or to run a official initiative. And yeah, it's quite challenging. I mean, I think that we would like these systems to be kind of incorruptible and stable and things like that. But I mean, governance in general is quite difficult. There hasn't really been any kind of like government that's probably stayed stable for more than 200 years. I mean, it'd be great if any DAO stayed for more than 200 years. That would be a success scenario at this point. But you know, it's like this is a really hard problem, and yeah, see what happens. Yeah.
So we can touch a bit on, like, say, DAO governance, right? I think when you're structuring a new project, for example, what goes through your mind when designing organizations?
Okay, so a bit of context for this. I think when I started with my current project, the inspiration came before like this concept of DAOs were in place. So I'm a very Web 2 person. So when I think about governance, it relates a lot to who are the stakeholders that you're looking to engage, right? So how you structure your tokenomics, the weightage of the tokenomics, and what kind of powers that voting gives you, I think comes into a lot of that play. For our particular context, because we work with the environment and climate, the kind of the kind of stakeholders we have are more like very Web 1, Web 2 people. So like ESG consultants, environmental scientists, data scientists, and so on. I think when we structured that, we thought about that in mind. Who do we want and who do we trust to be the ones to vote in the right direction for that project? We also considered very traditional Web 2, and I think that's what you said, what Chess said, is that you can learn a lot from Web 2 because we've already tried and tested a lot of governance. You look at corporations, how they're governed, with or without tokens, doesn't matter. You would traditionally have like a public DAO, or you give your public the impression that they are a DAO, but there are a lot of places still a super council, so to speak, where you can actually overrule. And these are true tokens that the founders hold. And in our particular context, we do hold up to 50% of the tokens, or that's the intention. So 50% we will allow voting, we will take it into consideration. But overall, because let's say if you're doing a public IDO and your project needs to have a certain direction, do you trust the public token holders to understand, for example, what in our context is going to be a good climate project or a good environmental project? And I think to very quickly touch back on what you said as well, to your point about how do you then have that governance and how do you engage them? I think a lot of it is through education. So when you structure your DAOs and stuff, you need to think about how much education you need to give the individual members of that DAO, I think. So these are my points.
So that's pretty helpful, actually. And yeah, Arun.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. If you're starting a project like many people in here do, and you're creating a DAO, I think one of the first things your advisors will tell you is to limit the number of knobs the DAO could turn, which is somewhat ironic. If this system was actually making efficient decisions, you would probably want to give it more power. But in fact, people are actually looking to limit the power because it's probably not very effective.
Well, I think that works differently for different things. I think there is no perfect model, right? That's the question. Like a lot of this is trial and error. So I think one of the interesting things that probably will come out in conversations when you structure how your DAO works is you have to leave open the option to change the tokenomics, to change how the DAO eventually evolves and works. I think that's probably, to your point, that's the only thing I can offer.
So I'm quite curious here also, because I think, Ravi, you mentioned that your organization's in the midst of a sort of decentralization drive, right? So I'm quite curious from like a Web2 organization's perspective, right? What elements of Web3 have you included? And like, why is this valuable from like, say, a tourism perspective?
See, decentralization is always helpful in terms of finding the new transparent pricing. I mean, I'm from the travel industry, and where we know that the pricing and the way things are done is very, very centralized. And we never know where the pricing is going for the flights or the hotels. And only we have very few selected service providers. And we really don't know that what is the exact and transparent pricing. So that's we have tried to do analysis, and when we started this Riva Metaverse, it is the decentralized travel organization that we are creating, where we are creating the decentralized. So anybody who has got the stocks or who is aggregator or from the airline also, they will be able to put their stock in our portal. So the people who are using it, they will be able to find a new transparent pricing. And not only that, what is happening now that you have seen that most of the reviews, most of the blogs, sometimes they are all very paid, or they are put in a certain way that the customers are influenced into buying that ticket or buying that property for a day or two. But what happens that if the reviews and these blogs and this thing is free and transparent, and people are paid for writing the reviews, then you will be able to get the most accurate kind of reviews and all. So this is the kind of decentralization we are trying to bring in the travel industry, so that the people get benefited. They get the most transparent pricing. They get the most transparent review of the flights, of the hotels worldwide, or of the experiences. So this is a new thing that we are doing, and already there are a lot of organizations who are thinking about it. But probably we are the first one who are really actually got into it, and we are going live by December.
That's pretty exciting. I'm quite curious also. So actually, this is for Rexy. Throughout the entire panel, I've been talking about DAOs, but we haven't really spoken about how DAOs operate. And Gnosis and Gnosis Chain, a suite of tools, mentioned a lot about it. I'm quite curious, like, to you, right, based on how users have been interacting with some of Gnosis products, which are actually quite a common DAO tool. what are some challenges that you have noticed, and does this lead to like more complexity or better outcomes?
Yeah, I think we need to touch on some of the basic understandings first to try to understand, the overall concept, right? So DAOs, I would say, are simply a group or a squad with ideas, right? But I think nowadays, I mean, there's big changes in how DAOs were structured, a couple of years ago, and now I think nowadays a lot of it is focused on a specific theme, whereas back then, there's more infrastructure related DAOs. We had MakerDAO. There's obviously Gnosis DAO as well. And nowadays you see DAOs like Constitution DAO, where it's just mainly focused on, let's say, purchasing art, right? And I think one of the major challenges, not just on our side, but externally as well, is how do we find the right level of decentralization balance, right? I think obviously DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, but in some cases we don't really, try to emphasize on increasing that level of decentralization. I think, we start realizing how important it is until it's too late, as we've seen in, obviously recent events. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys heard of the term Nakamoto coefficient. It's basically the number of entities that it would take a network to be taken down, And so it's on our side, we try to look at the level of entities that it would take to just take down a whole network. Right now, Gnosis has over 108,000 validators. So that's one point. And the second point, back into to the tooling side. So one of our teams within Gnosis DAO called Gnosis Guild, they've built out a really awesome operating standard to creating DAOs, and it's called Zodiac. So Zodiac is a very straightforward tool that you guys can use to create your DAOs. It's in this Gnosis Safe app if you've used Safe. So within Safe, you guys can take a look. You guys can search for Zodiac, and there's all these different features that enable you to provide power and resource management within your own DAOs. So I think, like, in terms of challenges, I think we've had quite a few feature changes with how we can set the scopes of account management. Like, for example, there's this one module in Zodiac called I think it was called the scope feature, and technically it allows the community to decide whether or not the DAO itself would require the Gnosis Safe signers to have veto within the DAO, for example. Because in a Gnosis Safe, you would need 4 out of 6 multi-sig signers, right? So you don't want that whole community of that initiative to be decided by just 4 out of those 6. So you get to decide. The community of that DAO gets to decide, whether or not the signers would be an important aspect to that. So there's all these different features, and I think one of the major challenges right now is really deciding how do we get the best for the community itself. And so we've been tweaking a lot of the features within the toolings that we have. Yeah.
So I think you've given quite a lot of touch on, especially when it comes to tooling. Should I talk a bit with Arun from BitDAO? So a lot of tooling that DAOs use, right, are not necessarily very decentralized, and I forgot what it was called, but there was this idea that sort of like the tools that you use kind of dictate your processes. So how do you think, or maybe based on your experiences so far, especially when it comes to setting up and running DAOs, what is an idealized process that you think can balance that trade-off between like decentralization and like good decision making? And he gets all the hard questions, yeah.
Yeah, that is a doozy of a question. Okay, let me think. Yeah, I think DAO tooling is definitely, like you said, is very much in its infancy. So at BitDAO, we use Utopia Labs for payments, and just kind of riffing off of that, I think that one thing we've seen from YFI and all this stuff is that it doesn't really make sense for everyone to know what everyone else is being paid. I think this tends to destabilize a DAO more than anything else, and tends to make people angry because the DAO token price is going down, and suddenly everyone's like, let's cut the salary for everyone in the DAO, which is generally, I mean, maybe it's warranted in some cases, but oftentimes it could just lead to negative feedback loop where people are being paid less incentivized to like actually work on it, and this is not great. But so I think that actually zero knowledge is going to be really pivotal here in the sense that you can prove certain things about the way the funds are moving in an audible way, kind of similar to like the proof of reserve coming online with exchanges, without necessarily revealing where all the money is all the time. And that's, I think, going to be like a more advanced version of what we have right now. And in general, I think that ZK is going to be great for coordination across all levels of the stack. For instance, one other example is private voting. Right now, everyone's votes are public in a DAO. Your votes are tied to your world identity. It's not great because sometimes there's something that's like very popular that you may just think is a bad idea, but if you vote against it, you may be committing political suicide. It's not a great situation to be in. If your votes were private, then you have more freedom to like vote more rationally versus kind of voting with the crowd. And if we've seen many DAO votes at this point, it's just there's like some whale logs the team, they vote a certain way, and then everyone just bandwagons off it, and that's just the end of it. It's hardly governance. Let's see, on other areas of the stack, I think reputation is going to be really important. Like I said, we need a way to kind of like measure someone's reputation and skills along particular verticals and kind of weight their decisions along those verticals more highly. And we're doing a lot in Game 7, which was on sub DAOs of BitDAO, in terms of gamification and trying to build that. That's, I think, everything on the top of my head. Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to drive a bit more from Chess's perspective. So I think you mentioned a bit about like onboarding more people to DAOs, right? And hence that trade-off, right? With like you require these different systems that allow people to be onboarded meaningfully. So since like it's pretty nascent, how are people doing it these days, and what is the best way you've seen so far that might set precedents for some of future tooling that we eventually create?
Yeah, I think that is many interesting DAOs. They are a very small group, and we have been talked to like at least 20 DAOs in the past 1 or 2 months, and they have something common problems. Like one is many native startup founders or core teams. They actually don't know how to grow users in Web2 in Web3. And they don't know like what's the retention, what's AARRA or something, the many indicators, and they don't know how to set the landing page for the new users and how to attract the users and to know their product and to believe or trust their product. And this is the first. And the second is sometimes they don't know what's a priority for a startup, because I think in Web3 or in crypto, in our industry, we are many people we'd like to create new concepts. But to be honest, for the fundamentally to see, I think DAOs is the same question. What problems are you want to solve? Use your product or use your community, and how? And then use what kind of resources or money or communities or many other things. So it's all the basic issues like can you create a product or can you create a vibe to attract users and like you or like the core teams, and then constantly to growth. So this is the second problem. And the third, as I think, is many teams, they don't have the best UI or UI designer or even product manager. The same like the many, I know there are the guilds, the game guilds in Vietnam or Philippines. So they are lack of this marketing tools or toolkit in the whole industry. So that's why we want to build this one, the first. And also I know like us, we keep the money on safe, and it's very convenient, because in Web3, if you want to be a leader or founder, it's so hard. You need to avoid Luna, FTX, many other things, and the different country regulations. So that's a DAO, I think the best advantage of DAOs, and also keep some easy way to serve out the different your people in different countries, different time zones. So, but I think it's still many new features need to be served not only by our product. Like many DAOs use Notion. We use Notion too. I think there's a big chance to build something Notion with a DAO's chatting tools or something inside in one product, like Lark. I think you both know Lark. And also there's many tools. How can we manage different people in different time zone, like a Web3 Calendly or something? So it's a very big market for all the DAO tools market. It's like the Web2 SaaS market. I think for our product Quest 3, we call us a growth as a service. I think there's many like manage as a service, something paid like Superfloyd. They use for the payment for the DAOs. but they are not do so better. I think it's still many chance. So to be honest, for the summary, I think there's a huge potential for the product side to build for the DAOs, for the new users into Web2, into Web3. And the product must go first, and the community must go first. And like Notion, I really like Notion. They change the product lead growth to community lead growth. That's why they win. They don't need to KOL to say that, oh, Notion are good, right? They don't need the big investor to say, oh, the product is good, you need to use them. They don't need. They just use the product, use their code, use their community to say they are awesome, they are good. So I think this is a permissionless, the inside of permissionless. Web3, we need to break through all the threshold it used to be in the Web2. And all the permissions. No, there are no threshold, easy to use and easy to go. You don't need to trust anyone. You only trust the word, trust the code, trust the smart contract, and trust the community. Yeah.
So I'd like to take some time to also take note if there are questions from the audience also, because you have covered quite a fair bit regarding reputation systems, tooling, why bother decentralizing in the first place, and in a sense, social consensus also. So are there any questions from the audience that would like to ask anybody on the panel? Just very briefly, because we have about maybe 5 minutes left. It's a bit bright, so I can't really see if anyone's raising a hand or... No, okay, so that's fine. So for the last 5 minutes, right, I think I'd like to dive a little deeper into maybe some challenges about DAOs. Generally, I'm quite glad the panel has been somewhat frank, right? There's a lot to be desired when it comes to DAOs. And like, might be a bit challenging. I'd like to hop all the way to Rexy. So prior to, I suppose, this Cambrian explosion of DAOs in 2022, right? There have been a lot of DAO tooling startups that have come across or come and gone, like Aragon or Colony. And in the end, it seems that it's really the simplest tools that win out. So looking forward, right? How do you think, or what do you think the social consensus might be around DAOs itself as a tool, considering that there has been quite a lot of controversy with DAOs. If you look at Snapshot regarding like voter participation, right, reputation systems, payments.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger concerns right now with DAOs is that a lot of people view it as a very inefficient organization. Like there's a lot of tax on inefficiency because people would think that when you delegate the decisions that happen in a DAO, you're delegating to a broad community, and that takes a lot of time, right? But I think that can really be mitigated internally within that organization because it would really depend on how autonomous that DAO is and how diverse the governance process is. I think this was actually touched on a bit by Vitalik on one of his articles around DAOs. I can't really recall the name. So the level of autonomy in a DAO, if I could go into practical details, like for instance, within a DAO, you have a very core team, like in our case in SAFE, you have the multi-sig signers, right? And then under those core team, you would have different functions, or people would call it pods. And so I think it's super important that all these different functions are enabled to run completely independently. There's not much, interference from the core side, because that would then help with the efficiency of the DAO. I think that's really one of the bigger challenges that I think we're seeing right now with DAOs, and why people are not diving a lot deeper into the approach of DAOs. Yeah.
So just very quickly, Ravi, from your perspective, how do you balance these trade-offs between, like you mentioned, right, decision making, and I think tourism is a pretty fast-growing industry now that COVID is returning. Oh, sorry, travel is returning. I don't want to jinx it. No, not now. Thank you.
See, basically, people sometimes take a decision when they don't have the complete information. So, main thing is that the clubs or the set of people who's interested in client, and it is a homogeneous set of people, then the decision making in the autonomous form becomes much easier. When the people are of the diverse background, they have a very different way of thinking, and then there is a social media, there are things who can influence your decision, then what you are taking decision could be not correct or may not be correct in the particular situation. So it's a whole lot of human psychology that get into that this autonomous organization can be successful or not successful, depending upon what kind of influence the outside environment can put on the person taking the decisions, which is very, very important. So for it to be successful, it has to be a homogeneous kind of set of people, and taking a decision which may not be very complex, much more easier, and like a zero-sum game, yes or no, then it is much more easier. Otherwise, the influence by the media, influence of the people, the conditioning of the people will take a toll on the right decision. So that's what my take.
So more focus on, say, the autonomous side than decentralization,
Correct.
at least maybe for the initial parts and eventually decentralized.
Correct.
Okay, that's pretty good. So actually we are out of time. So maybe I'll just wrap up the panel before we head off. So thanks everyone. I think we kind of danced around the concept of governance and focused a bit more on tooling this time. Because I think we are quite frank about the state of DAOs, and I'm very thankful that everybody has been quite honest on the panel. And I hope it has been a fruitful experience for you to hear from people on the ground, working on DAOs, working in DAOs. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Eat Vietnam. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.